Hey you guys, in this video I am going to give you a Christian mom's perspective on how we give our kids the talk. This is kind of another one of those videos that I wasn't planning on doing, except I recently did some Q&A videos, and after I had already recorded them, I found Gina's comment kind of hidden away from me because she had a word, a 3-letter word.
Code birds and the bees.
And YouTube kind of hid it away from me for review. And I have to intentionally look for those comments to go review them. And so I didn't see it, but I thought it was an excellent question. I mean, we're all wondering, how do you bring this up to your kids? How do you talk to them about these things? How do you train your kids in a way so that when they start looking at boys or they start being interested in girls, that you guys kind of have an understanding and that your kids hopefully are on the same page as you. If the conversation doesn't come up until that time, parents, you're already behind. You're already behind the 8 ball there. So we're going to talk about this today. If you're new to my channel, my name is Rachel and I am a homeschooling mom to 3 kids, age 8 to almost 15. This is a pretty sensitive topic and I'm coming at it from a Christian perspective, and this is just how my husband and I are handling this. This is based on our own convictions. Because of the sensitive nature of the topic, I'm very well aware that there are a lot of differing opinions out there. And so if there's anything inappropriate put in my comments, I will delete it, just so you know. But I'm all for healthy and friendly debate. I'm not afraid of that kind of thing. So you can disagree with me if you do it in a friendly way. I'm not going to delete it. This is my channel and I can do with those comments whatever I want. Okay, let's get started. If you see me looking down, that's because I wrote down a lot of notes. In this video, I'm going to present the topic in kind of 2 parts. The emotional aspect, which is like dating and relationships and love and all of that. And then the physical aspect, which is anatomy, physiology, how babies are made. All right, so the first really important point is I want to say we have talked to our kids about this subject from the beginning.
What do you mean from the beginning, Rachel?
I mean from the time they were toddlers. If they asked questions about where babies came from or about anatomy, we answered those questions truthfully in an age-appropriate way. We had conversations with our children if they were curious and wanted to know more. Again, we kept it all age appropriate. I was also always looking for, and I still am, I'm always looking for opportunities to have these connections with my kids. So for example, when my children were younger and we were, say, watching the Disney movies, right? The princess and the prince often would kiss. We would have these conversations right then and there. Should they be kissing? Are they married? Now, I'm not necessarily going to say that you shouldn't kiss before you're married. I'm not here to say that. That's what we're going with for our kids right now. And when they get to that point in their relationships, hopefully they will ask for our advice in our wisdom. I just kind of feel like right now, if I'm erring on this very, very conservative side of caution, then if they push that boundary a little bit, that boundary is already so far over here, pushing it a little bit. I don't know what I'm trying to say. You know what I'm trying to say. Whereas if I say, it's okay to throw your kisses around with whoever you feel like kissing, then we're so far over here that they're going to keep pushing boundaries, and then you're into what our current culture just throws these sorts of things around as if they're meaningless, and you can share them with whoever you want. That is not what the Bible teaches about intimacy at all. Our culture has really, really twisted all of these ideas. So from the beginning, when we see people kissing on TV, we'll have a conversation about it. If we see, boyfriend, girlfriend, teenager type stuff on TV, we have a conversation about it. I will almost always bring up to my kids, why do you need to be dating? if you are a teenager, like, what's the purpose of it? You're literally tempting yourself. You're tempting your hormones. You're tempting your natural body reactions when you are not prepared for that. Because you shouldn't be really thinking that way until you are in a position to where you can act on it. For example, are you ready to get married? Are you ready to be a parent? No. Then the Bible teaches us that we do have to control our thoughts. We have to control the things that we allow into our mind and the things that we think on. So I'll talk more about that later. So back to like movies and stuff or people that we see around us. I'm constantly having conversations with all my children, and like I said, I can't tell you when these conversations started. I've just always had them. What do you think would make a good spouse? What kinds of characteristics do you think would make a good father? And those sorts of things. And then I will help them bring it back to think about what the Bible says about what a good spouse is, what the role of the husband in a relationship is, what the role of a father or a mother is. And so that line of communication has always been open. My husband and I have always been very honest about what we believe about this situation. And hopefully, because it's not a new conversation for them, they're also thinking about it a little bit on their own, and that has caused more questions, which we can address as the parents. We want our children to come to us with their questions. I don't want my children to go to their friends to answer these questions. Their friends may have wrong ideas. Their friends may be wrongly influenced by the secular thought that we're constantly bombarded with. I want my kids to think biblically about this, about what does God want for us, what pleases the Lord in this situation, and His opinion and His ideas are the only ones that should matter. And so that's what I as a parent want to present to them. We use opportunities around us with our own personal relationships, with people that we know in real life. We have friends who are single parents. We have people in our lives who have had children out of wedlock or who think nothing of living together before they're married. We use these situations to talk to our kids about what does the Bible say about that? What is God's design for marriage? What is the way that God says, this is the way, follow it, and this way there is blessing? We've had real life situations that my children are very well aware of. Friends and family in our lives who began to separate themselves from the Christian influences and start chasing after all of the worldly influences. And many times that was due to emotional attachments, to unequally yoked relationships. So we use that opportunity to talk to our kids about who you should be emotionally attached to, because the Bible would not tell us to take all of our thoughts into captivity and to think on certain things if we did not have the ability to do that. We have to guard what we see, we have to guard what we hear, and we have to guard our minds. You know, we're all guilty of this. Thoughts come into our minds, things that you know that you shouldn't be thinking about, and yet we have the power as Christians to not think about those things, to get them out of your mind and stop dwelling on them and ask for God's help to dwell on the things that we should be thinking about. Like I said, sensitive topic, and it's not that Christians can't fall into those categories either. As parents, I think we can all agree that we want better for our kids, and I'm going to do everything within my power and within my energy to help guide my children in the way that they should go. I mean, that's what the Bible says is my job. Train up a child in the way he should go. Now, there will come a day when my child will start making his or her own decisions. But while they are in my care, while they are listening to me, I am going to be a loud voice in their ear and pray that the Lord gives me the wisdom and gives them the wisdom to respect that and to listen. In my opinion, what's really under attack right now in our society is the family unit. It all starts like with these sorts of relationships and this sort of thinking. And a lot of that time, it starts when you are a teenager entering into puberty. So I want to kind of get ahead of that and be ready here with an answer and let my kids know what we think about it. And so we're always talking about it. All right, let's talk about maturity and puberty and the talk. How have we brought that up? Fortunately, in my area where I live, for decades, there has been a group of Christian doctors, Christian nurses, Christian leaders in our area who have organized this event for fifth graders and their parents. And it's a 2-day event. I mean, it's not like all day 2 days, but it covers 2 days. So you sign up for this event and you can take any age kid. They just designed the program with a fifth grader in mind. So fifth grade is kind of the age level that it's aimed for, but if you didn't make it when your child was a fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade, those ages are there also. So even if you don't have something like this in your area, I'm going to tell you about it because it could be an idea for how you could present this to your child, or maybe if you know Christian doctors or nurses and you want to design something similar to this, it's an idea. It's very popular in my area. So I've had 2 children attend this event. Okay, so what the event is. It is for girls to attend with their mother, and they are like a separate event from the boys, and the boys attend with their fathers. The reason for the event is because, and I didn't write down these statistics, but statistics show, like teenagers were polled. Where did you learn about the birds and the bees from? A majority of those people learned it from their friends. Another huge majority learned it from music and TV and movies. A super teeny tiny percentage of this group learned it from the church, and a even more minuscule percentage learned it from their parents first. So that is why this event was organized, because also science is showing that kids these days are starting puberty earlier and earlier. So the average age for children to start puberty is now 5th grade. I don't know about you, but when I was in 5th grade, I don't think anybody was on the road to puberty yet. I feel like 6th, 7th, 8th grade when I was growing up was the norm. Apparently it's younger and younger, and it's down to 5th grade now. So 10 and 11 years old. So the purpose of this seminar is to open the line of communication again between parent and child before they reach puberty, before they start learning about this stuff in school, which if you're going to public school, you may already be fighting a losing battle, before they start talking about it with their friends. So that's the hope, is that they hear these things from their parents first, so they know this is not a taboo topic. It's not a topic we have to avoid. It's not a topic that your mom and dad know nothing about. And in fact, it's like the parent saying, I want you to talk to me about this. And that's why we're taking you to the seminar. When my son attended, my husband and I, the night before the seminar, husband and me and my son went out to dinner, and we let him know, you're going to attend this seminar, and here are the things that they're going to talk about. The first day, they're going to talk about anatomy and physiology of the female. They're going to talk about anatomy and physiology of the male. They're going to talk about how babies are conceived. They're going to talk about how babies are born. They're doing this all from a medical terminology perspective, a scientific perspective, but there is no shame in this. This is how God designed our bodies. It is kind of the world who has made this all shameful and made it a dirty topic and twisted its purpose, really. So that's what you're going to learn about on day 1. And then day 2 is going to be all about God's design, because the Bible has a lot to say on this subject. So what is God's design for marriage? What is God's design for the marriage relationship? The birds and the bees relationship. What is God's design for a family? What is God's design? All of these things. So they talk about it from a biblical perspective, and then they give the parents all kinds of, helpful resources to continue the conversation later. So the boys and the girls are completely separate sessions. So girls are only with girls and boys are only with girls. That way there's no giggling and snickering and feeling embarrassed to ask questions. Girls need to know about how the girl's body works on a monthly basis, and the boys they don't need to know all of those details, but the girls need to know that, and both sides learn about the proper hygiene, because when you start puberty, your hygiene needs change a little bit. I did not attend with my son, so I can't tell you how he reacted, but when I took my daughter, I had told her some things because I have a very curious daughter who asked a lot of questions. So she was asking questions before we had attended the seminar, and so I kind of told her everything there was to know. But we went to this anyway because this was going to go into greater detail. I mean, when I talked to her, I wasn't holding up pictures and explaining the anatomy and the scientific, medically how things worked. She still learned a lot and was exposed to a lot of new things. And was she uncomfortable? Yes, but I was there right next to her, and she was asking Mom the questions. She was not asking some other teacher who might have non-Christian ideas about the whole thing. She was not asking her friends for what they think or what their ideas were. Mom was her safe place. So then after this seminar, we let our children know this is an ongoing conversation. They can ask questions about anything, to always come to Mom or to Dad. When we took each child out with Mom and Dad before, that was also to let them know, like, my daughter doesn't just have to come to me, she can go to Dad too. And my son also, can come to me. They may not want to come to us for certain aspects of this, but when it comes to relationship and God's design, like, obviously Mom and Dad, we know this. We want to talk to them about this. And so we made that very clear. And after the seminar, we let them know we plan to bring this up again. So my husband and I try to, on a yearly basis, plan a one-on-one date. So me with my daughter, he with my son, to just say, how's it going? Are you having any thoughts? Do you have any questions? And if they don't have anything to say, because like my daughter asks questions all the time, I don't really need a one-on-one date with her. She's constantly asking. My son is a little more quiet. But if he doesn't have anything to ask my husband or to talk about, then my husband might bring some things up. So going back to the dating relationship thing that we just talked about, I'm going to talk more about here. He might talk about husband. What do you need to be a good husband? Because right now my son's a teenager, but he's preparing for the rest of his life. So why not start this conversation now? What kind of a man do you need to be a godly husband? So those conversations are happening. So at the seminar, they do give us, a little brochure to follow. From this resource, the Passport to Purity is definitely on my radar. I'm thinking I might get that and have maybe a girls' weekend with my daughter or daughters. Maybe I'll wait until my younger one is in 5th grade and has gone through this discussion, and then maybe we'll have a little girls' weekend with the Passport to Purity resources. So when it comes to purity and keeping yourself for marriage and all of that stuff, I am emphasizing to my children that purity is not solely about keeping your external clean, because you can do all the right things on the outside and look like a certain person to everybody else, and on the inside, as God says, they were clean on the outside, but their heart was far from me. My grandpa, who was an evangelist, used to talk about, a little toddler. You go tell a toddler to go do something, sit down, for example, and a little boy responding with, I may be sitting down on the outside, but I'm standing up on the inside. So to God, even though you may be sitting down, God sees that you're standing up on the inside. Jesus said if you just look at a woman or look at a man with lust, you've committed adultery already. So purity is not about making sure that you are this or that when you get married. A lot of times people, well, I got married as a virgin, but you did everything else, right? Well, that's not purity. What is purity? Like all of these other things that I'm talking about right now, those are just kind of the outward manifestation of what's in the heart. So having a pure heart is not about keeping your outside clean. It's about loving God with your whole heart and your whole soul, wanting to please Him and Him alone, wanting to honor Him. When you are serving God from a pure heart in that way, then none of these other things will be an issue. You won't even have to really deal with these other things. So I'm trying to raise children to be saved, first of all, to be disciples for Christ, and to desire to please Him in all things. And all that other stuff will take care of itself, if that's the case. So the book that I was reading to my daughters the other day, this book, The Princess Kiss, I think I got it found it at a garage sale, but I recognized it because I've also seen it at homeschool conferences. It's probably on christianbook.com and those sorts of websites. But this is like a little allegory. It's a little storybook about a princess who received a very special gift from her parents. Now, the day she was born, her parents received a gift from God, and it was her first kiss. And then when she turned 18, her parents showed her the kiss and said, you need to protect this, and you only give it away to the man who you're going to marry. So she just thought this was such a wonderful gift. How could she possibly give it away? Well, then the book goes into how she had many, many princes interested in her, and they came to court her. So it talks about Prince Peacock. Prince Peacock was a man who was like, look at me, look at my muscles, look at all the things I can do, look at how magnificent I am. He was quite arrogant. I think we all know men out in this world, and I know from my experience when I was single, quite a lot of these princes out there. And so the princess knew, well, he's so into himself, he's not going to have room in his heart for me. So she sent him away. The next prince that came was Prince Romance, and he was all trying to woo her and trying to win her with all these roses and poetry and all these things that woo women. And she said, this isn't going to last. Like, this isn't enough. He can't sustain this forever. So she needed something deeper. So she sent him away. The next prince that came was Prince Treasure Chest. Look what I can buy for you. Look at all the things I can do for you. That stuff doesn't last either. That's why in our marriage vows it says for richer or poorer. You can't be wooed by those things. It doesn't last. There's no substance there. Who finally won the princess over was a humble farmer who had been working diligently in the king's fields, who saw this beautiful princess from afar, and he worked and worked and worked, saving whatever he had for her. And then he came humbly and said, I don't have anything to offer you except for this gift that God gave me, which was his first kiss. But he was the only one out of these suitors who even mentioned God and sharing the gift that God had given him. And so she wanted that. She wanted somebody who guarded his gift, who was humble, who wanted to bless her with a gift, but who mentioned God. So anyway, this was a great talking point. It wasn't long for me to read, and it obviously sparked questions, especially for my 12-year-old. And we got to talk again about what kind of man does the Bible say would be a good man. I saw this saying years and years ago that says a woman's heart should be so deeply embedded in God that a man has to go to God in order to find her. that's what I'm trying to teach my children. I haven't read this book, Before You Meet Prince Charming, but it's another allegory. This is more for a teenager's reading level, another allegory about purity and about keeping yourself for that right person. I gotta say, like, a lot of my thoughts on this topic are far more conservative than how I was raised. I was not raised this way at all. And my parents are ecstatic that my husband and I are raising our children this way, because my mom just told me if she had to do it all over again, she would have approached all of this differently. So like many parents, you want better for your children, and you are happy when they are doing better than you. And that's what I want for my kids. I want my kids to do better than I did. So I think a lot of my ideas on this particular topic began to form around the same time, honestly, that I decided to homeschool. So I was very influenced to homeschool, and regarding this particular topic, by a Paul Washer sermon called What a Man Is Not. I will link that below. And you guys, as always, if I ever like reference an old video of mine or reference anything that I can link, it will always be in the description below. So I will put that sermon below. And then Voddie Baucham has just a lot to say on this topic also. I know I listened to a sermon by Voddie called Biblical Manhood and Biblical Womanhood. And Voddie is very upfront and forward about what he's training his sons to be, but also this agreement that he has because his daughter respects him as a leader of the house, as her father respects his opinion and respects what he wants for her. What kind of a man is allowed to even approach his daughter? His daughter so trusts Voddie as a father so much that anybody that's going to come to her to court or to marry has to go through her father first. And so Voddie's done several series on, well, what kind of a man is that going to take? I was looking for those sermons to post down below, which I will, but I ran across a more recent one by Voddie called What a Man Must Be in Order to Marry My Daughter. And that one is so countercultural. I mean, they all are, but that one is just like in your face, countercultural. He points out what our society, how they've cheapened even the physical aspect that the Bible clearly says is meant for a man and his wife, how our society and our culture has cheapened that into something meaningless. And he gives the example of how, all of our TV shows and movies, men and women are just entering into these casual encounters, and then later comes love. That's not what the Bible teaches at all. You got to listen to this sermon, What He Must Be in Order to Marry My Daughter, because it says what a man needs to be, but it also says what a woman should be looking for, because he also points out that in the Christian world, you can have women who love the Lord, and they are more than the men, more likely to compromise in that way. He sees it happen more often with young women than he does with young men. Young women who love the Lord, but will compromise the relationships that they're in. He doesn't see it as often with young men who are sold out for the Lord, yoking themselves to unsaved women. It's just such a good sermon. You got to listen to it. And I sent it to my husband and said, this would be a great topic for my son and my husband to listen to separately, study it separately, and then come together and discuss. And then I was like, this would be a great topic for the men and the sons in our church to talk about. Like, what does the Bible say about all this? Our society and the ideas that we're constantly bombarded with are not going to support us in this way. So this is a very serious battle, and we've got to be ready for the battle and be ready to fight. So from the beginning, I've been talking to my kids about this. From the time they're toddlers and every year since, I'm constantly looking for ways to bring this up, because I feel like this is such a huge obstacle that eventually comes to every single Christian. But I'm not talking to my kids and just saying, just do this, follow my rules, don't disobey me. I will tell them what I expect and what I think, but I am going to tell them the why behind it and why it's good for them to obey, and we're going to bring it back to the scripture because the scripture is the only authority I have to stand on. All other ground is sinking sand. If I just say, I think, and just do this, that's sand. Like, they need a solid foundation to put their trust in, and they need to be reminded that God's word is the only thing that matters. We don't want to raise kids who are religious on the outside, and inside their hearts are far from God, and they don't care what God thinks at all. Those are Pharisees. I don't want to raise a Pharisee. I want to raise a child who is saved, who loves the Lord with all their heart and all their soul, who is a disciple, and all these other things will take care of themselves. If you liked this video, please give me a thumbs up. There's more videos like this in this playlist right here, Mom Encouragement, Homeschool Mom Encouragement, and it's all from a Christian perspective. So check it out, and I'll see you next time. Bye.